All right, welcome everyone. My name is Jeff Oakes with D-Tool Software. We're about to get started here. It's right at the scheduled time. Thanks everyone for joining in. For anyone that is not familiar with GoToWebinar, you'll see on the right-hand side there's a few options. We may have a few polls or questions that we pop up. Feel free to post any questions that you have today in the questions section of the GoToWebinar window pane. That should collapse automatically for you. If not, there should be a little red, it's like a red icon with the arrow pointed to the right. If you click on that, that'll push it out of your way so you can see the screen better. And of course, you can just click the icon to bring it back out. Since it is a webinar, we've got several people joined in today, a lot of people actually. We don't want to have a bunch of background noise, so everybody's microphones will be muted. So please feel free to ask any questions in the questions area. And we will have a Q&A session at the end. So if there are any questions that haven't been answered, just hang tight. We'll certainly cover them towards the end here. So perfect. Let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. So the whole purpose of today's webinar is really talk about how we can help and talk a little bit about how you do things specifically in this low voltage industry. And I think with everything that's been going on the last year, I think we could all certainly use some good news. It's been a lot of ups and downs. I would say that for the most part, everybody seemed to have weathered the COVID pandemic from a business standpoint anyway. And the good news is, I mean, things are starting to turn around. I've been participating a lot in different conferences, looking at a lot of studies. And overall, all the economists, all the experts, even those that work in this industry are all saying that growth is coming. And specifically, we're looking at seeing a lot of growth this year. I'm sure some of you have already started to see that, but we're really expecting to see a pretty big hockey stick of activity as we start to get towards Q3 of this year. So we're really now getting close to the end of April. Into Q2, so not much time before that big influx of activity starts to come along. Which brings up the question, with a lot of business, you've obviously become more and more busy. I think we're all busy. There's always something to do. There's never enough time in the day. Which brings us to the point that just being busy isn't enough. And this is actually one of my favorite quotes I like around that topic from Seth Godin. He's great business mind, great marketer. But basically, to kind of summarize it, what he says is, busy, you get no points for being busy. You do get points for being, effective and productive and prioritizing things. And so, just being busy really isn't enough. So, and that's what we're going to talk about today is, how do you take all that you've got to do and become more efficient with it? And specifically, not just in general, but specifically for low voltage integrators. So people like yourselves that are doing AV systems, security systems, structure cabling, we'll show you how we can help make you more efficient at what you do every day. So to kind of give you a quick roadmap of what we're going to cover, first thing we're going to do is just do a quick introduction. So for anyone that's not familiar with D-Tools and the industry specific software that we offer, I'm going to give you the quick 30,000 foot view, as I call it, and then we'll jump into a demonstration of the system and talk about some of the common challenges or issues that people face and how we solve those. You can actually see that in action. And then at the end, we'll wrap up with some Q&A and also discuss next steps if you want to learn more or dive into more details with it. So a little bit about us as a company. We are a software solution that's been in business actually for over 20 years. This is our 22nd year in business. It was actually founded by an integrator. Like many of you, he got frustrated with the tools he was using, Excel, using some Visio or AutoCAD, and wanted to find a better way. So he came up with tools for himself, which of course expanded quite a bit in the last 22 years. We now have over 6,500 companies that use our system worldwide. And once again, keep in mind, we're only working with low voltage integrators. So just, primarily AV and security integrators. So like I said, that's our big focus. That's all that we do. So there's really several different areas that we help with So put a few of the kind of, if I had to summarize it into 4 buckets, this is what I would say is the most common. And this is actually takes us to our first poll here. So I wanted to go ahead and bring this up, just kind of see what everybody's, you'll see a poll pop up on your screen here. Just curious what your biggest challenges are. And there's probably, I know there's definitely more than this. So I've just tried to keep it as lean as possible. But, I think everybody could always, use some help with the estimation and getting proposals or quotes turned around faster. That's always a big thing. And then when it comes to drawings, I mean, just having a disconnected, process, I mean, you may be able to build drawings very quickly and efficiently now, but, the problem is it's not tied to the equipment list. So, there's changes that happen, there's revisions that happen, and, when that happens, things slip through the cracks. So that's another big one too. And so that's one of the things that, looking at the live poll results here, it looks like we've got the majority, or I would say the biggest one that everybody talks about looks like service and service plans is certainly an area that people struggle with the most. And then we've got, coming in second place, we've got the drawings and disconnected bill of materials. So that's good. That's interesting. And then actually tied for that, we've got the project estimation and proposals, and then some business insights. So, the good news is, I mean, so everything that, we put out there on that poll specifically, at least one person can identify as one of those being biggest challenges. So I guess the good news and comforting news about that is, even though you're struggling with it, the good news is you got other people in the industry that are also struggling with these same things. And, the good news is we do have a tool that can help you with that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and close the poll there. All right, perfect. Thanks everybody for participating into that. So let's jump into the overview. Let's talk a bit about what we do. And so this kind of segues into what I've mentioned there in the polls. So those are the 5 different buckets that you would have seen there as far as what are your biggest challenges. And these are all areas that we touch and that we focus on. It's taken a lot of years of, talking to integrators, getting real world experience with them and seeing, what works, what doesn't work. And so we've come up with a solution that really comes up, solves problems in all of these 5 key areas. And we'll talk a bit about those here before we jump into the software. So, tying all this together is data. So really any system that you're using to estimate and track POs and manage projects, everything has data. And so we have this huge library that we've developed and continue to maintain that gives you a big head start on getting the system set up. This also alleviates a lot of time in management and even errors too by having our library that you can tap into. Now, this library is a joint effort. We have our own full-time data team. This is all that they do every day. We also have several hundred manufacturers and vendors that participate directly with helping keep their products up to date and product information, as well as pricing. Now, is it ever going to be perfect and have absolutely every single part that you'd ever want to sell in there? Probably not. There is a ton of stuff. We're talking hundreds of thousands of active parts in there. So just keep in mind that is I think a really good value add with our system is you have the ability to tap into that database at any time. And for any users that are located in the U.S., we also have direct price feeds available too for well over 100 vendors, which is nice. And for anybody outside the U.S., be patient. We're working on it, trying to get those added, but that part has really taken off here just in the last year, being able to do that. So we'll talk a bit about that today as we go through the demonstration. But the first thing is you get an opportunity. So you get a new opportunity. You want to put it into a system. You want to track it. You want to manage your notes. So D-Tools does offer a solution for you to do that. So you can put in the initial lead or contact information. We can build a sales pipeline for you and track your forecasting based on that. But we also, of course, get into the estimation and proposal side of things. And One of the things that we do, with that library I just mentioned is we can also track labor times per part. And when you download an item from our library, it actually has your labor has a labor time already pre-assigned to it. Those are industry averages. So if you're not quite sure how much time it's taking you to install a particular item, we give you a starting point that you can work off of. And of course, that's just one way of estimating and tracking labor. We do have other ways of doing that inside the system, but we found over the years that that's actually a quite popular way of doing things, because with that, as equipment gets added, equipment gets changed, especially when it comes to change orders and things later on in the process, labor is oftentimes what gets missed. So, adding changing out amounts, could require, an extra half an hour of labor. And so little things like that add up to, losses and eating into margins on projects. So we'll talk about that today. Another nice thing about the estimation system that we provide within DTools is we do give you the ability to also add in alternates or options for customers. So obviously with different systems and technologies available, you oftentimes find yourself in a scenario when you want to present upgrade or even downgrade options to the customer. And so we do give the ability to present those all within a single document, so it's easy to follow. We do, of course, have the ability to estimate service plan. So as recurring revenue becomes more and more part of kind of like the I would say the daily life of integrators, everybody wants to sell more service plans. Everybody wants to have a better way to track those two. And so the system here is really good at estimating those monthly, annual, quarterly contracts. So those can all be built in. And one thing I'll say to, from a reporting standpoint, as far as the proposal that you hand off to the client, everybody has kind of a little bit of a different take on how they want to do it. And so we do have some proposal templates, which you'll see today, some different layouts. Keep in mind that's 100% customizable. So you can make it look any way you want. If you've got a document right now that you're used to selling with it, and it's working well for you, it's just taking way more time than you think it should. Good news is, in most cases, we can replicate that report exactly as a DTools report. So keep in mind, you don't feel like you're boxed into a specific look or feel on your proposals. Don't have to worry about that with our system. We can make it look however you want to and automate it. And one last point on this is, everything is becoming more and more paperless. So we do give you the ability to distribute your proposals, estimates, contracts, change orders. All those documents can be sent out through an online portal that we have. So it's a customer portal. The client can see all their project-related files, things they need to approve or sign off on. It includes electronic signatures. And from a sales perspective, what's really nice is we do keep you in the loop as far as activities go. So if the customer looks at it, makes a change to it, makes a note, whatever it is, all that stuff gets sent to you directly. So you get real-time notifications on all that. So what we found over the years, just doing studies from customers, at different stages as they've rolled this out, they've seen their revenue actually increase 10 to 30%, which, a lot of that can be attributed to our system. And there's a lot of efficiencies and errors and things too that were eliminated to make that more possible. So the other part of this is drawing. So a big part of what we do, and really this is what sets us apart, I think, from just another quoting or estimating tool, is the fact that we deeply integrate in with AutoCAD and Visio. So with our system, you can actually start with the bill of materials first, create your equipment list, your quote, drag it, then later you can drag and drop any of those parts that are on there right into a drawing. And directly into AutoCAD or Visio, it'll bring out the appropriate blocks or shapes for you. And the nice thing is it's all tied together. So if you add something on the drawing and if you swap it out on the drawing, it changes the bill of materials. So it's all linked up. Now, you can also do it the other way around. You can actually start from the drawings first, which is, a lot of times people are doing that anyway, we've seen. You may grab just a sheet of paper, sketch it out on paper, then go back and do your counts and build your estimate based off of that. And so if you're doing that anyway now, you're doing it twice. And also when you're doing that, you run the risk of miscounting or, kind of translating from one to the other. So this system works beautifully for starting with drawings first. You can bring a floor plan in, just start dropping stuff on a floor plan if you want to. And as you do that, it's creating your estimate real time with your equipment, your labor, and any other items that you may want to consider, like, does it need a mount? Does it need this cable? Things like that. So that's all built in. So just think of the drawing process and estimation process being pretty much tied together. I mean, it's all married together within our system. So making changes and doing things in one does affect the other. So that way you can pick up, in a lot of cases, 40, 50% time savings just by doing that, especially if you're doing both. Now, the other big part of this, I think, is the change order process and revision. So obviously everything's going great, get sign up on the contract, and then, of course, the inevitable happens. Client changes their mind, or, maybe we have to make some changes. The part's no longer available. We have to swap it to something else. So this change order is where a lot of problems happen, whether whether you realize it or not. Things slip through the cracks. We have to eat costs on things. And so within D-Tools, what we do is we keep track of everything neatly. So once the project's been approved, it gets locked down, and every change, whether it's an internal change or client requested change, gets tracked. And the drawings and all the equipment lists and all the reports are all tied together. So literally, instead of having to make a single product change in 5 different places, you just do it once and it changes everywhere. It's all tied together. So a lot of time saved there, a lot of headaches eliminated, and errors as well too reduced with that part of it. So project planning and installation. So, once you got the project approved, of course, you need to plan it out, schedule it, start ordering equipment, things like that. So within our tool, we do have the ability to plan out your resources. We can generate a Gantt chart for you if you'd like, and put together an initial project plan. Another kind of relatively new feature we added last year based off request is customized checklists. So you can have, it could be a specific checklist or punch list for a particular project. It could be standardized templates that you always want to do for, every project or certain types of projects. And so it allows you to kind of keep track or keep, score on where you're at on things and who's done what's been completed, are there problems, and it keeps a whole process in place beyond just the actual equipment install. And as far as the equipment install goes, we do loop in the field team with a tool we have called Mobile Install. And so Mobile Install is something that you can use with really any phone or tablet out in the field, even a laptop if you want to. And the technicians can pull it up. They can see all the details of who the job's for, where it's at. They can actually go through and check off the items that have been installed and completed. Also, tracking serial numbers, MAC addresses, IP addresses. I mean, that's huge these days from a service standpoint. So, once they put that device on the network, we get an IP address, we can actually log it, and that's now stored with the part. And that becomes a part of the project record back in the D-Tools system. So when that customer calls up for service or we go out there to do an upgrade, we have all that information there handy, and we're not having to, and a lot of times we find that helps prevent having to roll a truck out to site as often, because you've got all that there and you can diagnose and troubleshoot a lot more with everything tied together, especially with the drawings too, with that. And of course, photos, site notes, and of course, field changes. Things happen out in the field. We have to add some stuff on the fly, or a customer, starts expanding the scope a little bit while they're out there. You can always add stuff into right there on the fly. And that's all tied, once again, back into the main system. So we're all on the same page. And those times that are being tracked out in the field by the technicians, we can actually compare that with your estimated time. So you can actually see how you're doing on a specific project, how you're doing overall, and and make adjustments too for the future based on that. So this was the number one thing that everybody mentioned in today's poll as being one of the biggest things that they struggle with. And so with service plans and service orders, so what it is with this, we do have the ability, as I mentioned earlier, to sell service plans or service agreements. So you can actually track all of those inside of here. And when you do sell those, it's important, of course, to know when those are coming up for renewals. and also what's included, what's not included. So we can keep tabs on all that stuff for you. But we also have the ability to create service orders or service tickets, as a lot of people call them. So a customer has an issue, ticket gets set up, you can send the tech out to the field. Once again, we can track times, update equipment details, take photos, add, customer, we get out there, we see the problem, what it is. If you want, the tech can pull it up, find the part in your database and tell them, okay, this is what you're looking at price wise. So, gives you a lot of flexibility for the technician out in the field, but really kind of, once again, loops in what's happening out in the field to what's happening, or what's, happening inside the office, but also the records that we're tracking. So once again, loops it all together. And then we had a few people too, on the poll today mention that, back office business intelligence. And this is another area too, like, with all this stuff that's going on from a sales and engineering and project management standpoint, there's a lot of insights that you can get based on that. So, you've got of course, your sales pipeline stuff and forecasting and things like that, pretty straightforward, but we give you some other insights too, how are we doing from a profitability standpoint overall, or based on a project or type of project, or even based on the client. What equipment are we selling the most, selling the least? Which ones are we making the most money on, making the least money on? So a lot of good stuff, even down to resources too. If you want to see, average profit margin for a salesperson, or a sales rep you have in your team, all that stuff you can take a look at a glance. It's all customizable. You can create your own graphs and charts, and these can also be set up on your homepage of the system. So depending on what your role is and what you want to keep tabs on, that's very flexible and can be laid up as you need to. And of course, simplify other things too, like POs and ordering equipment. And we do, don't want to leave this slide without saying that we do integrate with a lot of third-party programs. We've got over 20 integrations that are active. And if you have a system that you need this to link to that we haven't done before, don't worry. We have a great, flexible, open API and a team that can help with that. And so in a lot of cases, we can build out a custom integration or help you, do that on your own if you want to. So there's a lot of options there from an integration standpoint. So before we jump into the software, I just want to kind of, summarize that, the whole idea of, a software solution, specifically one that's targeted for what you're doing every day, designed exactly for what you do. If you get a system in place, 99% of the time, you're going to see a big return on investment on that. And there's a lot of different ways that we do that. And usually the biggest way is time savings, just from not every aspect of the whole process, cutting the time in half. I've actually done a few case studies with some of our clients, before and after, and we've literally done the little nuts and bolts, like every single step of the process, comparing, A, what it was before, and B, what it was after. And surprisingly, it's usually around 50%, which sounds like a crazy number, but it's true. I've seen it firsthand many times. So there's a lot of ways to speed things up and improve the process. So let's jump into the demonstration, the fun part, if you will, so you can actually see the software in action. So what I'm going to do is pull this up here. Got the wrong screen on there. Sorry, we don't care about the Google page. All right, so there is the software. So this is actually the home page to the DTools system here. And it's customizable. I kind of mentioned this earlier. You can create your own graphs and dashboards on your front page. So depending on what your role is and what you like to see, this will definitely look different. And the good thing about this is something that you can set up based, per user. So if I'm a project manager, I probably want to know, okay, what's out there being worked on? Are there any field change orders? Are there, anything that we're, overdue on? All that stuff can pop up. Keep track of pending change orders, forecasting, sales numbers, pipeline, or just, if I'm on the sales team, just keeping track of my leads or opportunities. So there's a lot of good stuff that you can do here, and this gives you, an interactive, front page dashboard you can just dive right into. Now, one thing I mentioned earlier that we have is our product library. And so what I'm going to do, let me go ahead and pull that up, just kind of show you what that looks like. There's usually a lot of questions around that. So this is a library that, as I mentioned earlier, is constantly being updated. We're usually doing, I'd say last year we averaged a little over 30,000 product updates per month. You can even see the stats down here below. So just last week we updated or added a little over 11,000 parts. The week before that, close to 47,000. So it's a lot of stuff. I think we're going to exceed that 30,000 number per month this year. But like I said, it's not just us. I mean, we do have a whole team of people that have that fun, boring job of building and adding and managing product data. But we also have support with hundreds of manufacturers. And that's one thing, too, that should comfort you in knowing that, the manufacturers actually take their time to dedicate a resource to help with this in DTools. You're not going to see that through any other software platform out there. So we've got that huge sponsorship, huge support, and that just means that, they see us as the industry standard for helping with those things. And so you've got your huge product list here on the left. You can go through, search, find what you're looking for. Now, one thing I mentioned previously is price feeds. So we did launch this, say it's almost a year and a half ago. This has taken off quite a bit. We've got 145 vendors right now that are participating, and some of those are manufacturers direct. Some of them are distributors, which some of them have hundreds of brands even within that distributor list. So you go in, you find the brand or product line that you want to get connected with, and go in, you put in your account number, put in your zip code if it asks for it, and then this will get verified and you'll get connected. So this will start sending you dealer cost information right through the system. So that takes one less thing off your plate, and then it goes out every night, looks if there's changes, and sends it through. So this has been like I said, a really popular thing that we've added, and we're continuing to add more and more vendors. I think we're around 5 or 6 vendors a month that we're adding to that program right now. So just keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, nice resource that you have available to you. You can go out and grab stuff here as you need to from our library at any time. Now, if there's something that you need that's not in there, you can always create the item yourself. We do have a data request process as well that you can go through where you can request items, and the community as well can vote on, brands that, hey, we need this updated or we want to add them to the library. So a lot of good stuff out there too for that. Now, once you download items, those items are going to be put into what we call your catalog, and your catalog is going to consist of products or equipment. You've got labor items that you can just add into a job if you want. And you've also got packages. And packages are basically pre-built systems or assemblies, things that you find yourself using or selling frequently. No need to have to recreate the wheel every time. Just create it once, save it, and it's there for future use as you need to. And with that, with packages too, we have some other things that go along with that. You can build allowances and other budgetary tools in there as well to speed things up. So often get asked, what kind of product data do we track and what's in there? So let me just go open up an item here inside the system. Now, the part, it doesn't matter what the part is. I'm just going to grab a camera here as an example. And it doesn't matter if this is a speaker, amplifier, TV, camera, card reader, it's all going to have the same product fields on it. You've got a manufacturer name, you've got a model number, you've got categories on it, and we also have, of course, images as well that it's a part of. We also have systems too, which we'll talk a bit more about that in just a bit, but you can link up these devices too as part of an audio system, an access control system. This will actually add up all the numbers and group things so you can present it that way to the client if you want to, and of course give you some good insights as well. You've got descriptions where you do a short and a long description, which you can always edit any of this information here. You got your price tab where your pricing is stored, and you can set up multiple price types. You'll see I've got a few set up over here on the left-hand side. And this allows you to, I'd say in most cases, what people use this for is to track different sell prices or preset margins. So if you've got a customer you do a lot of work with and you've got a special deal with them or arrangement on pricing, you can set up a price tier for them, and that could be linked to their account. So that way nobody misquotes something. It's just kind of automated. You don't have to think about it. We also have down below, you'll see here is labor. So we do have a labor time there. Like I said, if you download it from us, you can bring that down if you want to. You can always change it. And so this is just considering just the install time. So keep that in mind. You know, if we say that it takes an hour and a half, that doesn't mean that that's all the labor that's involved. You may have some other labor you want to build in. So if you want to include things like management time, design time, programming time, all of that can be essentially pre-built into it and bundled in, so that way those get added at the appropriate rates and they're just adding up as you go. So, you know, you're not forced to do that, by the way, but what we found is a lot of people do like that option because, you know, as you're, you know, quickly adding, changing parts, the labor values go with it. Like I said, a simple example, you know, a TV, you know, if you installing a 55-inch TV versus an 85-inch, that's going to have definitely a different labor consideration because you're talking about, you know, one tech versus two. So, you know, that kind of stuff all gets built in, so that way when those things have to get swapped out or changed, you know, we're not missing the labor component on there. We've also got the ability to do ordering. I'm not going to get too much into that, but we can issue POs really quickly in bulk out of the system. Your specifications are in here, dimensions. The reason we care about dimensions is for the drawing side. So especially if you're building something like a rack and want to make sure everything is going to fit properly in that rack before you order all the equipment, system does great for that because you can just drag and drop it out. The racks are to scale, the equipment's to scale, you can fit it all up and make sure it works. And then you got a nice, beautiful drawing that the technicians can use out in the field, which lists out all the rack unit numbers next to it. So it becomes, you know, a great engineering and installation tool. I/O is another important thing. We do track this so we can help speed up the wiring diagram process. So if you know, are used to creating, you know, input-output drawings, those are extremely time-consuming to do. And so what we do is we speed things up by having the ability to have inputs and outputs on the part, so you can actually go through, you can wire things up. We automatically create all your wire numbers and all your labels too. So once you build a system, you've got a detailed wire checklist that we can send off to the team that we don't have to do manually. We've got all the wire labels and wire numbers pre-assigned, so you can print those off as you need to. So that right there can save hours, if not a day, in labor just by having that part of it automated. So that's all built in. Accessories. So I didn't really touch on this too much earlier, but this is definitely a big value here. And this is being able to link up additional parts or labor to the items that you sell. So I think it's all happened to everybody at some point. You sell a part and you forgot the power supply, or you forgot the mount or the cable, or this little, you know, thing that we have to have for it to work properly. And so to help avoid that issue, we've got the ability to build in your standard parts and labor in with the part. So as you add it into your estimate, it's going to give you a little pop-up, say, hey, do you want this, this, or this? And you can choose the ones that you want. If it's something that you always want to include, you can build that in as a mandatory accessory, so it doesn't even ask you. So for instance, this cable, you know, I've got it set up where that's just going to drop the cable in automatically. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to go look for it. It's just there. So this saves a lot of time, and like I said, also, you know, errors and mistakes too of having to not only eat the cost on it, you know, but, you know, sometimes eating the cost on a missed part is only a fraction of what the overall cost of the job is, because, you know, you realize that last minute, and then you're having to, you know, overnight ship it or go pay retail or even delay, you know, the job. So, you know, it can have some pretty big impacts. You know, a few dollar part can end up costing you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So this is like I say, huge benefit that's very small piece of what we do, but this right here could easily pay for itself in no time. And so there's a lot of other good stuff here too. I won't go through the rest of it. I just want to kind of touch on the highlights, but these are just some of the big things that, you know, we're tracking in the system, and this is what helps loop it all together here inside the software. So let's go venture back here to the home page. And so with the time that we have left, let's go through and let's do a little small, quick sample project, just so you kind of get an idea of how this works, and you can see kind of how kind of connect the dots on how we can speed things up for you. Now, when you go to projects, you can start a new project, and you can also have templates set up too, which is another great little tool. Jobs that you may, if you have some similar jobs that you do frequently, you can have kind of a starting point that you can kick off from, so you're not having to recreate the wheel. And when you set up a new project, there's basically a series of forms that you can go through. You don't have to fill all this stuff out to get started. You can just put in the basic stuff like a client name and project name. Let's go in here and just choose one that we've got in the list here. And then we'll call this April webinar. So that's the minimum I have to do. I can hit save, I can jump into it, start adding equipment if I want to. But let me show you a few other things that we have here in this initial new project wizard so you can see what's there. Now you can also create any of this stuff as mandatory. So if you don't want jobs created without some of the stuff filled out, you can do that too. So one thing I like is the status. So you can keep track of where things are at in your pipeline. So we can say we're in the estimating stage here. And all of those stages are also linked up to probability percentages. So if you do want to use this for forecasting from the sales side, you can. This also ties in with our workflow rules. So as the project kind of moves down the pipeline, once it gets approved or is won, we can alert the assigned project manager, we can alert purchasing, we can alert accounting, so they can start the billing process. There's a lot of automation that we can set up based on different events or triggers happening inside the system here. So we can go in, choose our roles, who's doing what. If we know it at this stage, we can change our price tier or price level if you want to, set our target dates for certain things. And once again, feeds into the dashboards and reporting there. We do have the ability to set up additional contacts. So architects, general contractors, electricians, all those people can be put in here if you want to track it and keep tabs on it. We have the site and billing address, so you can set those up here. And those addresses can also be used for calculating your tax. And so for for instance, US and Canada, we can, do a quick sales tax lookup for you. And you can also, of course, just enter it in manually, or if it's tax exempt. I've got mine set up to automatically calculate the tax real time as I do it. But that's, a feature that we do have available inside the system. We do have the ability to also set up project resources. So this is going to be other people on your team that you want to be added or tagged into notifications and be able to access the project. So you can go in there and add other team members that you have into this if you want to. You can do this later as well. You've got your scope of work area. And one of the things that we've tried to do to speed up the scope of work process is, you can always copy and paste if you want, but a lot of times people have some kind of standardized templates that they like to use, or some different, we call them snippets. So you can come up here and actually drop in a snippet and say, okay, we're doing a auditorium audio system, surveillance, access control. So I'm just going to go through and choose a few different systems here. And as I do that, this starts to build up my scope here. And you can always edit this, you can add more stuff to it, and you can even create new little snippets or templates too on the fly. But once again, trying to eliminate having to duplicate, work over and over again. And, this once again is also shared too. So you got other people on the team, they can have stuff in folders and grab things as they need to. We also have the ability to do locations, and this is a part of a project setup that you can get very detailed with if you want. You can actually go in here and either type in new locations. You can go pull from a list of existing locations that you may have. So we can just kind of go through here and check them off, add them in there. And you can even import, from a template. So once again, anytime we have a list of locations, we try to speed things up by allowing you to create templates. So that way you're not having to do something over and over again you've already done before. So as you can see, I can add this here quickly. And this is a more detailed example. I mean, you can see I've got a campus name for a school. I've got a building name. I've got a floor name. I've got a room name. I've even got racks designated on there too as their own location. So you're not, of course, required to go to that level of detail, but it's there if you need it. And this allows you to present the estimate or proposal to the customer, grouped by the location with subtotals and numbers based on that. This also is a huge help from an installation standpoint. So you can actually dispatch out certain floors or certain areas of the job and assign those to people through tasks that we have. And of course, gives you some good insights too as far as progress and what's going on. So we got your locations here. We've got systems is another thing we can do. I'm not going to get into it just yet, but systems, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of like, audio, video control, cabling, that can be built in. You can go in and add those manually, but I've got mine set up to automatically do that. We've got payment terms, payment schedule. Of course, you can set those up and manage those if you want to. And then you got your custom fields. So with custom fields, we give you 50 of those, so a ton of them. And you can rearrange them, deactivate the ones you want. So basically, you can just, gives you a place to create any custom forms or any other data that you want to track. You can put it in here, and then this also can be shared with the field team when they're out doing an install. So things like Wi-Fi passwords, building codes, we can have it stored safely here in one spot. So let's go ahead and hit save on that. So once you get this, once you go through the setup options, and like I said, we took a little bit more time to go through all, talk about some of the options that we have, but, you go in, spend a minute or so, get everything set up the way you want. And then let me pull it up here from my other screen. Then you've got your project editor. Now, what this is actually where you're going to see the equipment show up and the pricing start to add up here as we go. So we won't have time to do a whole lot, but I just want to give you a quick demonstration of how this would work if you're starting with an equipment list first. So one option here is you've got this Product Explorer. This shows me the equipment here that I've got in my catalog here. And we'll see on the right, I've got my locations over here that we've set up. So let's go find a part. Since we did a camera part, let's do something a little different this time. Let's grab an amp or something. So if you grab the item, you can drag and drop it and put it into a location like rack 1. Now you'll see I've got some accessories here. It's asking me, do I want to include programming labor? Do I want to include a vent panel for the rack? And so if I don't need one of those items, I can uncheck it. Otherwise, I can just go ahead and add it, and that'll put both of them in there. Now it's collapsed by default, but you'll see those are actually both tucked underneath there inside of that. And then let's say I want to go grab something to connect this to. Let's go grab a speaker in this example. Now, of course, I'm using an audio example. If you're doing, more security systems, surveillance access control, same principle applies. You've got your, you may have a switch, an NVR, cables, cameras, things like that. So same concept here. But what I did here, you'll notice that I just typed in the word speaker. And so the good thing about this is it does, work with plain English here. You can just say, hey, speaker, and I want a JBL, and then it'll trim down your results. You find the one that you want. And if that item is going to go in multiple locations, good news is you can just go over here and check off all that stuff here and just drag and drop it into the project. And so once again, any accessories or add-ons we can get prompted for. And if you're adding in things like cable, we're going to ask you, you can set this in either feet or meters based on your settings. So we could bump that up here to 150. We can assign a head into it if we wanted to. And this is going to start building some wire checklist and also accurately estimate our cable based on the amount of the length of cable that we have set here. So that's all there. And from a cable distance measurement, standpoint too, on the drawing side, which we may not be able to get into today, but we can actually draw out, wire paths and give you the estimates there too, if you want. So here is the equipment list. So we won't go too much further than that. Just throw a few items in to play around with. But this now added the items here to the project. I can actually, if I want to make any adjustments to this, I can come over here to the right. And I saw some warnings there. I can see why one of them got a negative margin here. So somebody goofed that up. So we go in there and we fix that, and that's an easy fix. And then we can also, make a quick adjustment to a price individually. So if I do want to charge, say $5,800 for this, I can. I can also adjust it based on the margin of markup. So if you're used to using or doing this in Excel or a spreadsheet, the way it works is very similar, but of course it's got all this other stuff linked to it. So easy to work with. Of course, you can set the whole margin of markup across the board too if you want. And based off that, we can see up top where we're at price-wise, labor-wise, and we can make adjustments to that if we want to. So that's just one way that you can build a project. You find your parts, add them in, lay them out the way that you want to. Let me just jump into the drawing side of a little bit. And once again, as I mentioned, we're not going to have time today to go through everything, but I do want to, show you some key stuff here. Let's go jump in with Visio here to start. Now, the system does work with Visio and AutoCAD natively, so you can actually use either tool or both. It's a direct plug-in, so if you're used to using Visio or AutoCAD, the good news is it's going to still be using that, but we're just going to be linking your bill of materials, linking your reports in there, and also automating a lot of manual processes as well. So in here we've got, let me go turn off the grid here. So we got a blank slate here. This brought in my company logo I had set up. It brought in the client name and project name we did. So a lot of little stuff there. You don't have to do any of that manually. It's all linked up to the project here. Now you can do drawings. We have 4 different drawing styles that you can do. You'll see these tabs down here. We've got line, elevation, plan, and schematic. So it doesn't matter where you start. If you want to start with a floor plan, you can. If you want to start with a simple one-line drawing, you can. It's all tied together. So let's go over here to the line diagram. We'll start with that. So how I would actually build a drawing from what we just did a few minutes ago is I would open up my project editor here. And this is the exact same interface we were just in. It's a separate floating window. You can put this on another monitor if you want to. You can do a split screen if you want. It's up to you. So let's go over here. I'm going to go grab let's go maybe expand these a little bit and take a look at what we got here accessory-wise. So let's go grab a speaker and a cable, and let's go grab an amp here. And let's drag and drop it out. So we drag and drop it out, bring it down on the page, and this brings out an icon here. It looks like I forgot to choose a part that have pictures on. So if you don't have pictures on it, you get this little block here, so not nearly as appealing as the image would be, but that's basically how it works. So like I said, very simple one-line drawing that you can do here, not much to it, but very quick and easy on the page. Now, the kind of flip side to that is doing the schematic version of it. And so with this one, let's go drag it out, the same equipment here that we have selected. And on this one, we can actually see the details of what we can connect it up to. So we can connect this up here, we can connect this up here, and you'll notice every piece of equipment has a unique ID, so we just automatically create those based on your preferences. Create your wire numbers and labels, as I mentioned earlier. You can drag and drop, move this stuff around if you want. You can even remove these IOs here if you're not using them all. You can just say, hey, show me just the connected ones, and that gets rid of it. So like I said, a lot of little tricks and things that we do here. I mean, I could easily spend over an hour just on the drawing tools that we have and all the cool stuff that we have to speed things up and save time. But yeah, that kind of shows you a little bit there on the schematics. Same thing with rack drawings. I mean, you can come over here, grab an item. Now, the beauty of this is if you realize that you don't have something in the project that you need, you can just add it here. You don't have to go to a separate tool or go somewhere else. I can just say, all right, let's go add a item to rack 1. We'll come over here to the Product Explorer. Let's go find the part that we want. We're going to go grab it, and then we're just going to drag and drop it into the drawing. So once we do that, this has now added the rack here to my drawing, but if I go back over to my bill of materials, I'll see the rack has now been added to the project. So the equipment, the labor has been added. You'll see this little blue dot here that just lets me know, hey, that item is on the drawing that you're looking at. The good thing about this is you can't really mess it up. Like if I try to drag this item over again, it won't let me put that rack on there twice. So visually you can't, make that mistake of saying, oh, I've got 6 of those on there, I'm good, and then realize you only charge for 5 later. The system won't let you do that. It's all fully linked up and tied together there based on that. And so once again, just a matter of drag and drop, grabbing the parts, laying the items out where you want them to go and putting them where you need to. And for racks, we can do a simple wireframe block like this. You can have something that looks more like the equipment or exactly like it. We got just different levels of detail that you can show there based on that. So that's, like I said, just a quick example. You can do floor plans, of course. We've got a really good floor plan stuff here, but in purposes of time today, I know we're kind of getting close on it. I want to move off and show you a few other things, but big takeaway with this is all drag and drop. AutoCAD or Visio, fully tied in with your bill of materials. So changes or updates you make in one place are all tied together. So you're all working from the same database at all times here with that. So, we can do, and by the way, I'll mention this at the end too, but if you did want to go into more detail on this stuff, we can schedule and do, personal webinars for you here as well, if you like. and get into more detail. So once you get into a project, I just kind of trim my list down here for just a second so we can see it. So within this list, you can actually see, all your projects you're working on. All your files here is stored in one place. So, once again, small feature, but big impact, where you can actually, store job site photos or sign contracts or files that you get from the customer. Everything can be stored in this system and accessed here essentially. So that's a nice little feature there. We also have revisions, change orders, tasks, service orders, and so on. So actually, let's go pull up that project that we were working on. Let's go grab it here. All right, so there it is. So there's that Visio file that we created that's stored there. So what we can do now is we can go ahead and let's say we get this approved. It's going to move it to the one stage. And it's also going to go ahead and lock everything down for us. So that project that the customer signed off on is now sitting over here as a revision. It's read-only. Nobody can goof it up or mess with it. It's locked down. So any changes we make moving forward are automatically going to track change orders inside the system. Let me just show you a quick example of that, because once again, change orders are an unfortunate fun part of our jobs. So we go in here now. If you need to make a change, once the project's been won, you can just come in here and say, all right, let's delete that. And it's going to ask you, do you want to delete the cable and stuff too? You may have already run the cable, so we're not going to unpull that. You can do a change order, and it's going to ask you, is this an external or client requested change, or is this an internal change? And that does matter because that will impact what happens to the numbers. So if it's a client requested change, we're going to need to get their approval because they're paying for it. If it's internal, we're eating it, it's going to impact our cost. So we can do it either way. So that you'll see here shows me that this is pending to be removed on change order 1. I can do the same thing for additions. If I want to add something that's not there, maybe I want to add one of those to rack 2, drag and drop it up. We can add it to the change order we started or create a completely separate change order there based on that. And that shows up differently here, a little plus symbol in green. So you'll see these little visual cues here as far as what's pending to be removed and added. That's important because this also translates to other parts of the system. When I go to order equipment, maybe I don't want to order that equipment if it's pending to be removed right now. Same thing with dispatching people for installation. I don't want to send this team out with this, $5,000 worth of equipment that the client is looking to not do. So you can see all that stuff, gives you a nice heads up, and further downstream, not just on the estimation side of things. So that's all built in, and all this stuff here reporting wise, you can generate proposals, generate change orders from all of this. Let me just do a quick, let's go run a quick example here so you can see this. So I'm going to run a quick proposal, and you'll see whenever you do that, if you do have any change orders, you can run the document on just the change or the overall project. So in this proposal template I'm running here is probably going to be really overkill for the size of project. So, but we can still take a look at it here so you can see what that looks like. So just based off what we've done here, in the last few minutes, pulls together a proposal, and the template, as I mentioned earlier, what this looks like and what it entails is completely customizable. So like I said, this is just an example. But you got your cover sheets. You can have introduction letters that are personalized to the client if you want to. Scope of work for the project. As I mentioned, you can put that stuff in and have templates for that if you like. I can summarize the equipment that we put by room or location to the client here very quickly. Of course, break out all the details of where it's going to go. You can also do it by system. So as I've added the equipment, it's automatically assigned equipment to distributed audio or rack system. Once again, I can break out those numbers if I want to or present it that way. You've got your summary here, so we can see what that looks like. I haven't saved that drawing we did or any of the drawings, but you can, put that in there if you want to and display those. Contracts, payment terms, all that stuff can be done as well, along with, presenting your service plan options and, of course, about us and all that too. So very flexible document. And like I said, we can be very simple and basic, or we can be a lot more detailed and elaborate, more brochure-like if you want it to be. So tons of flexibility. Once again, it's one of those topics. We've got so many reports and options. I mean, I could once again probably spend an hour just telling you about all the stuff we can do there on that, but unfortunately don't have time to get into it today. And speaking of time, yeah, we're getting close to that hour mark. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So fortunately, we're not going to get too deep into other parts of the system, such as installation tasks, service orders, purchase orders, service plans, and all of that, which I know some of those topics are important to everybody. So before we kind of have a hard stop up here at the hour, let me go ahead and open it up for questions right now. And if anybody in this last 5 minutes, anybody has a preference on what they like to see more of, or talk about service, let me know. You can post that in the questions area. And, with this, since it is we're talking about a full business solution here, software-wise, there is a lot to it. And so that's why, doing a one-on-one webinar or online demonstration will be very beneficial, where we can go deeper. You can ask questions on the fly, and, we can go a lot more into it if you want to. So let's just see here how we're doing on that. Okay, good. Let me grab this open here so we can take a look at some of those questions that we have. Bear with me a second here. Let's see here. Got a good bit of questions. All right. So let's see here. Let me grab. Sorry, it's got a webinar interface isn't the best. Give me 1 second here. All right. So we've got a few questions. Yeah. So one question was, if we had, let's say, a camera to a floor plan, and we want to say, wall mount, want to include appropriate back box and accessories that would be needed. Yes, we can certainly do that. So when you're dropping a camera to a plan, we can actually, you'll have the option to choose how it's mounted. You can do, wall mount, ceiling mount, and it has the industry correct symbols too, if you want to use those to designate that on the plan. But in addition to that, you drop a camera in there, it can also have your different mount options. If it can be mounted to the wall or to the ceiling or to a pole, you can have all those built into it, along with the back boxes, cables, injectors, whatever else you need. That can be factored in. So that way you're not having to go hunt for those items every time. You just get prompted and reminded there along the way. One of the questions, do you work with Bluebeam? Unfortunately, we don't. We just work with Visio and AutoCAD right now. We do get the requests to do it with Bluebeam, but I would say if you're used to using Bluebeam, the closest interface would be our Visio interface to that. And we've got a lot of really nice tools where we can bring in PDF floor plans. We can scale those. We can turn layers on and off. So, it really, from a PDF standpoint, if you're working with those a lot, we've got some really good tools in place to do that. So for that, so we've got some questions here about multiple users. Questions, can I have 2 users but 3 technicians, using the mobile tool out in the field? And the answer is yes, you can do that. So you can actually kind of choose the number of licenses you need. And that's something we can work with you on as far as getting all those counts and stuff right for that. Does it integrate with Sedona? We do not have an active integration with Sedona, but we are about to start that process. So good news is it's not too far down the pipe, but we do have an API. I know they do too. So we just haven't had anybody mutually that we've done wanted to go down that road with, but we have somebody now. So I don't think we're too far from that being an option here. Let's see here. Is this software cloud-based, or do we put it on our PCs? So good question. So there's 2 parts to the system. There's a server component, which is kind of the hub to the whole program. That can sit up in the cloud. That can also be on a local server if you want it to be. So it's totally up to you. There is a client application that does go on each laptop and desktop. So it's not fully cloud-based. We have to still do local software for a few reasons. One of those is for the AutoCAD and Visio integration, has to sit there locally. And we do also have, still clients that do require offline capabilities. So, you can do that with our system. Even if you have a cloud-based server, you can disconnect and run offline and then sync up when you're back online. So So, yeah, so it is kind of a hybrid, I would say, but it can be deployed different ways there. Is there help desk call tracking? There is to an extent. Now, it's not, that part is not automated, so it doesn't automatically track phone records. We don't have an integration with any, VoIP or phone systems, but you can go in there and log a note or a conversation with a customer on a service ticket or just on their account if you want to. But I would not automated phone tracking is in there. Let's see here. Another question. Do you integrate with Salesforce? Yes, we do. We do have a integration with Salesforce we've had now for close to 4 years. It actually works really well. You can actually get it directly through the Salesforce marketplace. If you have any questions on that or want to see how that works, just let us know. We've got some videos, or we can set up a demo for you to show you that. Let's see here. And, before I know we're kind of jumping into the end of the webinar, I'm going to keep answering questions. If you have to leave, certainly understand, and I do appreciate you coming out today and spending time with us. We'll be following up with everybody that attended just to see if there's anything else you need or any other questions, or if you need a follow-up meeting, we can certainly do that. So I appreciate your time today. Let's see here. Accounting functions. So AP, AR, invoices. We don't get into accounting. That's kind of our cutoff point when it comes time to start the billing and invoice process and bookkeeping and all of that. So what we do instead is we just, integrate with other platforms for that. If one of the systems that you use isn't there, like I said, just let us know. We may, we may be in the process of doing something, or can do something for you if you need to. Let's see here. The question is, do you consider this to be a CRM? Yeah, I think, it's hard to answer that because, is it a CRM for what most people would use it for? Absolutely. It's not as robust as Salesforce or, another big CRM as far as all the capabilities it can do from a CRM perspective. But, it depends on what you're using your CRM system for. If it's, basic contact management, tracking, activities, attaching files, that kind of stuff, then yeah, we can do that. But we're not doing like email campaigning and marketing and all that stuff that, comes with that as an option. So just depends on the extent that you're using it. But I'll say that we've had many clients, transition from Salesforce and other CRMs to dTools and use that as their sole CRM. So, it can be a replacement if you're using a separate CRM now, but we just probably need to talk about what you're using it for and whether or not we can, fill the gaps there on that. Let's see. Question was Quicken integration. I assume that's probably QuickBooks integration. We do have integration to QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop and Enterprise. So yes, that's a long-standing integration we've had for, I guess about 17 years now. So it's a really good integration that we do offer. Do you integrate with NetSuite and Dynamics? Yes, so we do have the ability we have an integration with NetSuite, so yes on that, and the Dynamics will depend on which Dynamics you're talking about. There's about 5 or 6 different flavors of Dynamics, so if it's CRM, 365, GP, AX, SL. I'm sure I'm missing one, but that's the ones that come to mind. Do you have pre-recorded videos or full presentations? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can send out a video. Like I said, the webinar I did last month would probably be a good one. I know we kind of ran out of time today. I was a little long-winded on certain topics, so we didn't get through as much as I'd hoped for today. But yeah, we can certainly send you a video so that way you can share it with the team. Can you link your existing device blocks in AutoCAD to specific equipment and dTools, or do you have to use our stuff? So yes, you can. Good question. Good question. So you can actually link any blocks or shapes that you've created to our database, and you can do that as a one-to-one thing, or you can do a bulk assignment and say, hey, I want to use this block for all my cameras or all of my switches. So yeah, short answer is you can definitely do that. You don't have to use our stuff for that. Let's see here. So the follow-up to that, Dynamics 365, we have actually, well, we have a client that was doing an integration to that. I'm not sure the status on that. But yeah, we'll have to, like, we can look that up and circle back with you. But I know we've talked to some people about doing that integration there. Let's see here. Jump through some more questions. We've got that one I answered. Okay, pricing. So as far as pricing goes for the system, I assume that's what that question is. It's going to vary depending on the number of users that you need. So how many you need to use the main application, how many mobile users would you need, also the level of training and implementation services you need. So that it varies. It's kind of hard to give a quick blanket answer on that. So, the pricing on the system is subscription based. So, you pay a monthly or annual fee for the system. And of course, with that, we offer hosting and also personalized, training and implementation services too to get you launched up. So, yeah, best to have that as a side conversation, but we can certainly help you out with that just so you can understand what that would be from there. Well, let's see here. Yeah, so one of the questions, let's see, you've got products in your database would also include Visio stencils, or would you have to import them in? Yeah, so as a part of our library, we do have standard AutoCAD and Visio blocks or shapes assigned to the parts as a part of the library. So when you download something from us, it's going to have something already there. Now, whether or not you want to change it to a different icon that we have or one that you've already created or get from another source, you can certainly do that, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, you do get something by default. So you're not going to have to go back and, try to match up or create all these shapes and blocks manually. That is one of the things that, or one of the many things that we track as a part of our standard product data inside the system. So yeah. Yep, good question. Let's see, a lot of good questions today. Let's see here. So another question is, I know you don't do accounting, but would you be able to do invoicing, recurring billing, or would need a third party for that? Yeah, I mean, we're really not designed to do like the bookkeeping side of things. Now, we've had people that generate invoices out of our system, an invoice report, but we don't have any functions in there for collecting the payments and tracking, what's open versus due. I mean, there are some workarounds and things that you can do to make it do a lot of that stuff, to be honest, but I'm kind of shy to say, yeah, you definitely would want to, you definitely want to have some form of a dedicated accounting system. If you don't have a good one in place now, a good one that plugs and plays with our system that would work very simply is the QuickBooks integration. So that's something to consider with it. And there's different versions of that, no matter, big or small, unless you get up to, you start getting about $25-30 million a year, you're probably going to outgrow the enterprise version of QuickBooks. But yeah, there's something for most of you out there. Must Visio and AutoCAD be purchased or owned separately, or does DTools include, I guess, let's see here, kind of cut off there. Yeah, so that AutoCAD Visio, you do need to have your own licenses for that. The plugin or integration is included, but you would need to have your own license copies of those just on the machines that you want to use those programs with. So not everybody has to have AutoCAD, not everybody has to have Visio, but just for those people that would be using Visio or AutoCAD, yes, you'd want to have a license for that. We have the versions that we work with on our website, but just a quick answer on that: Visio 2010 and up it works with, and then AutoCAD 2014 and up, I believe, is what it is. It does have to be a full version, not a light version of AutoCAD. So unfortunately, that's a limitation I wish we could get around, but they don't allow integrations to the LT version. So yeah, and then yeah, Sedona, yeah. So yeah, we'll like I said, we do have some stuff coming. I know we're looking to start something with Sedona, so I don't think it'll be too much longer before we have something with them on that. All right, so let's see here. I think we're out of questions. I'll do one last call for questions here before we wrap up. Like I said, we're happy to, give you a call direct, go over some of these, any additional questions you have, and even schedule an online overview. And we'll get the webinar. I'll get this recording out from this one, but like I said, I'll also send you send you a better one that's got more stuff that we show in it. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful here. So yeah, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. I think thanks everyone for sticking around this left here for the last hour and 10 minutes. We'll be reaching out to you, as I mentioned, and yeah, don't hesitate to let us know if we can assist you with any of these things we talked about today. All right, everyone, take care. Have a good rest of your day, and hopefully we'll be speaking to you again soon.